Everyone at Riverside General called her the quiet one. She mopped floors with her eyes down. She spoke only when spoken to. Nobody asked about the scar on her collarbone. Nobody asked why her hands never shook, even when the machines screamed. For 6 years, she had been nobody. That was the plan. Then a boy stopped breathing in exam room 4, and a name fell out of his father's mouth. A name she hadn't heard in over a decade. A name that belonged to someone who was supposed to be dead. Everything was about to change. Hey, before we go further, welcome back to Silent Heroes. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from tonight. And here's a question for you. How many of you think you already know who this quiet nurse really is? Type your guess below. Now back to the story. Her name badge said Maria Cole. That wasn't her real name. It hadn't been her real name in 11 years. Riverside General sat on the edge of a mid-sized city, the kind of place where nothing dramatic was supposed to happen. Just broken bones, flu season, the occasional overdose. Maria worked nights. She preferred nights. Fewer eyes. She was tall, but she folded herself smaller than she was, shoulders rounded, chin tucked. Her hands were calloused in a way that didn't match a decade of paperwork and 4 lines. Her eyes were pale gray and very still, the kind of still that came from years of learning not to flinch. There was a thin white scar along her collarbone, another along her left forearm. She told anyone who asked, which was almost no one, that she'd fallen off a bike as a kid. She had learned the fastest way to survive was to make herself small. Not physically small. Invisible small. She spoke in short sentences. She avoided eye contact with anyone who lingered too long on her file. She never mentioned the 6 years she'd spent somewhere she wasn't allowed to name, doing work she wasn't allowed to describe, under a call sign she wasn't allowed to say out loud anymore. Dr. Aaron Beck ran the ER like it belonged to him. He was 44, sharp-jawed, always the loudest voice in any room he entered. He had a habit of humiliating nurses in front of patients, a correction here, a sigh there, a favorite line he liked to use on Maria specifically. Try to keep up, Cole. This isn't your grandmother's sewing circle. He said it almost every shift. She never answered back. Somewhere behind that stillness, something old and disciplined absorbed the insult and filed it away, unused. There was one person who saw past the quiet. Grace Whitfield, 78 years old, a retired schoolteacher who came in twice a month for her heart medication checks, always requested Maria by name. You carry yourself like you've buried people, Grace told her once, out of nowhere, while Maria checked her blood pressure. I don't know what you left behind, honey. But it's still in your hands. Maria said nothing. But she didn't argue either. That, for her, was as close to agreement as she came. It was 2:14 in the morning when the doors burst open. A man half-carried his son through the entrance, screaming for help. The boy was 7 years old, lips already turning a dusky blue-gray, chest heaving in short, useless gasps. His father was sobbing the same words over and over. He's not talking. He hasn't talked in 3 years, and now he can't even breathe. Please, God, somebody help him. I'll give you everything I have, just make my son speak again. Beck took charge immediately, voice booming across the bay. Get me a crash cart. Possible anaphylaxis, 50 of AP, now. He was wrong. Maria knew it in under 4 seconds. The boy wasn't swelling. No hives, no facial edema, no wheeze pattern consistent with an allergic airway closure. His trachea was shifting, barely but shifting, pulled subtly to one side. His oxygen saturation was crashing too fast for anaphylaxis alone. And there, low on his ribs, a faint asymmetry in how his chest rose. Tension pneumothorax. Air trapping in the pleural space, building pressure, collapsing the lung, pushing the heart and great vessels out of position. Untreated, cardiac arrest within minute. She stepped forward without thinking. Old reflexes didn't ask permission. Dr. Beck. It's not anaphylaxis. Tracheal deviation, right side. Decreased breath sounds. He needs needle decompression, second intercostal space, midclavicular line. Now. Beck spun on her, face reddening. Excuse me? I did not ask for your diagnosis, Cole. Step back. The boy's oxygen alarm shrieked louder. His lips darkened another shade. Then the father, still gripping his son's hand, looked up at Maria and froze. Wait, he said, voice cracking. I know that voice. I know. His eyes locked onto the faded ink just visible at her wrist, barely peeking from beneath her sleeve. You're Reaper. The word hit the room like a detonation. Silence dropped over the bay like a dropped scalpel. Beck's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The tremor that had lived in Maria's hands for 6 years, small, private, hidden under long sleeves and careful posture, was gone. Just gone. Her spine straightened. Her voice, when it came, was flat, calm, and absolutely certain. Get me a 14-gauge needle, she said. Right now. Or your son doesn't make it to the OR. Beck didn't move. So Maria moved for him. She grabbed the needle from the crash cart herself, tore open the packaging with her teeth, and located the landmark on the boy's chest in under 2 seconds. Attention, pneumothorax is a race against pressure. Every second the trapped air builds, the collapsing lung pushes harder against the heart, choking off blood flow until the heart simply stops. There is no time to wait for permission. There is only the window, and then there is nothing. She drove the needle in at the second intercostal space. A hiss of escaping air. The boy's chest dropped, evened out. His oxygen numbers began climbing. 78, 82, 89, like a stalled engine finally catching. He needs a chest tube and a trauma surgeon in the next 10 minutes, Maria said, already moving to secure the line. Somebody page thoracic. Now. Nobody argued. A tech ran for the phone. A second nurse who'd been frozen against the wall snapped back into motion. Beck stood off to the side, epinephrine still in his hand, useless, unopened. By 2:31 in the morning, the boy was stable and rolling toward the OR. Beck found his voice again in the hallway outside, in front of 6 witnesses. You're suspended, he snapped. Unauthorized procedure, insubordination, practicing outside your scope. No, Maria said. Just that. I am just done hiding. He called security anyway. 2 guards hovered awkwardly, unsure whether to actually touch her. A small crowd had gathered, nurses, techs, even Grace Whitfield, who'd been wheeled in for a 3 a.m. chest pain workup and refused to let anyone push her bed away from the scene. That girl just saved a child's life, Grace said, loud enough for the hallway to hear. And you're going to walk her out in handcuffs? Beck's jaw tightened. She's not who she says she is. No, said a new voice from the entrance. She isn't. 3 people in dark coats walked in like the temperature had dropped. At the front was a gray-haired man in his 60s, spine like a steel rod, a Navy service pin on his lapel. Commander Ellis Hargrove, retired, he said, badge already out. I've spent 11 years trying to find this woman so I could finally say thank you to her face. He turned to the stunned hallway. Petty Officer First Class Maria Calloway. Field call sign, Reaper. Combat Medic, 8 deployments. Distinguished Service Cross. Bronze Star with Valor. She kept 11 men alive on a night nobody thought anyone would walk out of, including me. The hallway went silent in a different way now. Not shock. Reverence. Beck's face had gone the color of paper. There's no way to confirm that. This is a hospital, not a... I just confirmed it, Hargrove said. You're the one who tried to give a boy in tension pneumothorax a shot of epinephrine. I'd start worrying about my own paperwork, Doctor. Beck opened his mouth. Nothing useful came out. It didn't stop there. Within the hour, hospital compliance pulled Beck's recent chart. A pattern emerged fast. Falsified diagnostic codes, inflated billing for an unnecessary cardiac trial he'd been quietly funded to enroll patients into. He hadn't misdiagnosed the boy by accident. He'd been rushing, cutting corners for months, chasing a research stipend that paid him extra for every enrollment, real symptoms or not. When hospital security moved to detain him for questioning, Beck grabbed a scalpel off the crash cart and lunged for the nearest exit, straight toward the boy's father, still shaking in the hallway. Maria moved before anyone else registered what was happening. Old training doesn't fade. She caught his wrist, twisted, and had him on the floor in under 2 seconds. The same calm efficiency she'd used to save the son now used to stop the father. "Don't," she said quietly, "or the last thing you do in this hospital is lose." Security took him down the rest of the way. 3 weeks later, the boy, his name was Eli, sat up in a recovery room and spoke his first full sentence in 3 years. "Thank you," he told her, "for not letting go." His father broke down completely. Maria didn't. But something in her chest, closed for 11 years, finally let go too, the memory of a young medic she hadn't saved, back in a place she still dreamed about, still whispered an apology to some nights. Eli's voice, cracked and small and alive, was the first thing in over a decade that felt like an answer. Beck lost his medical license within the month. The hospital board opened a full trial fraud investigation. A new emergency protocol for pediatric trauma triage was adopted hospital-wide, quietly nicknamed, by the staff who knew Cole's rule. Maria was reinstated, then promoted. She didn't take the corner office. She asked for something else instead, a new trauma response unit, combining combat medicine with civilian emergency care. They named it the Callaway Center. Grace Whitfield was there on opening day, front row, cane in hand, grinning like she'd known all along. "Told you," Grace said. "It was still in your hands." Here's the truth this story leaves behind. The people who've survived the most are often the ones who learn to disappear the loudest. Strength doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it mops floors and keeps its head down for 11 years, waiting for the one moment it's needed most. You don't have to hide what makes you capable. It might be the thing that saves someone else's life. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to Silent Heroes so you never miss the next one. Drop a comment. What would you have done in Maria's position? And don't go anywhere. The next story is already waiting. The end.